and welcome to the Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast. With your hosts, Ashley and Mike, please sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast presented by the Undroppables. I'm your host, Ashley. This is my lovely co-host, Michael Duncan. How are you tonight?
I am feeling particularly dexterous. Dexterous.
Dexterous.
Why? I don't even think, because I have a mic on my head now.
Oh, yeah.
So I can spin around and run wherever I want to if I would like to keep talking.
Like all the greats. You have
exactly.
That truly official. Who do we have to give a shout out to that for?
Shout out to my buddy Jake. I don't know if I'm actually taking this yet, but he bought it, realized he couldn't actually use it. And said, you should use it for the podcast. And I said, okay, sure. I can just plug it into my interface and we'll give it a try. So if anyone has any strong opinions about, I knew that was going to be his first comment was going to be say, wow, looking good. Yeah. And then, So if anyone has any strong opinions about the way that I sound now versus the last one, other than, I always sound like shit because I'm aware, but anything positive.
You look like $1 million, says the comments.
No, I think he says sounds like $1 million. Probably.
Sounds like $1 million. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, you with a new mic, me with a new camera, like big day for upgrades.
Yeah.
Big day for upgrades.
Well, I'm the same mic though.
Yeah. Same old mic.
Yep.
The running joke.
Weird hearing you call me Mike.
I know. I don't like it. I'm never going to do that again.
Even though it's closer to my first name, Duncan, but
so
whatever.
nobody ever told me, like when we first got introduced through the Undroppables, nobody ever told me that like you liked to be called Michael. So I had called you Duncan for a while until you officially and I was like, do you like being called Duncan? And you said, no, I prefer being called Mike or Michael. And by that point it was too late. Like it had been months.
Yeah, I know. You got it from someone, and some of the Undroppables do call me Duncan or Dunk, but that's the first time in my life that I've ever been called Duncan. Yeah,
like exclusively Duncan.
Like in elementary school, there was like, well, it's not the first time that's happened in my life either. As Jake is pointing out in the comments, my senior year of high school was the first time anyone ever called me Mikey. So went most of my life being just Mike or Michael, and gained 2 more, but like elementary school, people would go like Slam Dunkin' or something, or like Dunkin' Donuts. That's, typical elementary school lack of being clever. But
So now it's just Duncan. There's no going back.
Only for a select few people, most of which I have never met in person. Yeah. Actually, all of which except for me.
Except for me. Yeah. I was going to say, we met in person. Don't say that.
I said almost.
Almost. Okay. All right, let's get started. We have some news to talk about first, and then we will jump into some more draft prospects. But on the news front, let's talk about the big one we missed last week. Unfortunately, Duncan had a flooded basement.
I did. Our basement loves flooding.
Did you guys have like a million inches of rain like we did here?
Yeah, it was, and that's the thing. I've fixed it in a lot of ways, so it doesn't flood nearly as much. But yeah, it rained for like 4 days straight. What am I going to get out of that? Like, just, I was good. And now my grass is growing. That means I have to mow soon. I hate when I have to mow the lawn. This is, no one gives a crap about this.
Oh my God. Before we jump into news, did you see the solar eclipse?
I did. Yeah. We got a 90 to 95% coverage out here in Philly. I just kind of like walked out of my office. Like it was really nice. It was that feeling of just like, no one's really going to yell at you because the boss is out here too. I'm not scheduling meetings during like this hour-long period of time. So I'm out there, just goofing around. Thankfully, my sister thinks of these things ahead of time. She bought me glasses. Yeah, because I always forget. But no, it was pretty cool. I hear you have a better story about it, though.
I do. I drove up to the middle of nowhere, New Hampshire. This has been on my bucket list for like my entire life. It was at the top, like maybe not number 1, but like in the top 5 of things I wanted to do in my life. So I couldn't pass up the opportunity that in like the Northeast, this is the only one that's going to be here for the next 75 years. And I don't have to travel. Like I did, like it was a couple hours drive. But yeah, so I got to see a total solar eclipse. It was genuinely the coolest experience of my life. Like I can't really describe it. Like it was like life-changing, which is funny to say, but it was one of those moments where it's like, I'm not just like living in like a Truman Show simulation. Like I live on a
Oh,
planet,
you
like a
still
floating
might
rock.
be.
Maybe.
There's
But like
truly no guarantee that you're not.
I know, but you
That
know what I
stuff
mean?
could
Like it's not
definitely be
I'm
fake.
not like just a person in this 2D like on one flat piece of land. Like I'm like it's just a speck in the middle of a universe. Like it was world changing. And my favorite part, one of my favorite parts too, is just like the humanity of it. Like thousands and thousands of people in the middle of nowhere, New Hampshire, with glasses on, cheering at the sun and the moon, and like a bunch of kids on their front lawns, like with signs that say honk, and some guy in like a Sasquatch costume on the side of the road trying
Love
to make
it.
people laugh on their way home. Like it was just like this, like if everyone felt human, like there was nothing else to do but like look at the sun and the moon. It was so freaking cool. But then the drive home sucked. It took me 10 hours to get through a drive that would have been 3.5.
I mean, that's actually not too surprising. Now
For
that
me,
you say it out loud.
a lot of
But
everyone, that wasn't worth it. But for me, that was totally worth it.
yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. It's pretty mind blowing. You know, for people that most normal people aren't going to be like going to space.
Yeah.
And then like, there's very few things that I think as humans we're able to experience that really truly show us the vastness of the universe
Mhm.
in like in a digestible way. One of those
Mhm.
would be going to space, seeing Earth, and being
Yep.
like, wow, yeah, like that's really it. So yeah, I agree with you. It's
Mhm.
very cool.
It's cool.
It's a great time for memes on the internet. Big
Mhm.
fan of all the people that were searching about my eyes burning.
Yep.
People
I
are
particularly
morons.
loved
Love
the
it.
pinhole camera experiment, but with a Cheez-It. I retweeted
Yeah,
that one.
the
Yeah,
Cheez
the
It one. I like
Cheez-It
that.
eclipse.
A lot of Avatar: The Last Airbender memes. I know you don't get
Mhm.
them, but
Yeah.
that was the day, the day of Black Sun,
Yep.
when the Fire Nation was going down.
Mhm.
If you watch the show, you know how that turned out. But
Yep.
yeah,
Also, like, seeing it in person, like, I get why they used to, like, sacrifice virgins to the volcanoes.
okay,
You know what I mean?
relax.
Like,
No, we're not.
no, like, I get it.
No, you don't. That's no.
No, but imagine you didn't understand the world, and then all of a
Sure,
sudden, in the middle of the
but
day, the sun
don't
disappears. I get
don't
why they wanted
say
to, like,
out loud.
sacrifice things.
No, stop saying out loud. Oh yeah, no, I get why they sacrificed virgins
I
to the
do.
volcano. I totally get it.
I do. When they
Understandable.
had no understanding of the
Totally
universe.
makes sense. Yeah,
It
you have to
does.
say that. Don't just be like, "Wow, I saw
Well,
this cool thing, and now I kind of get why
you
they
didn't
wanted
let
to
me get there
sacrifice."
before I even finished my sentence. You cut me off.
Yeah, and yeah,
Back when they
normally
had no understanding of the universe and the sun just disappeared in the middle of the day for a couple minutes, they thought they made the sun god angry.
yeah, that's the level of explanation you need, accompanied by a statement that says, "I understand why they
I was
sacrificed
getting it.
virgins." No, you
I was
weren't.
getting
You were
Yes, I
like,
was.
"Hey, they sacrificed virgins." Awesome. Makes
No, I
sense.
literally said, no. You're gonna listen to this back and be like, I was in the middle of talking, and you were like,
Yeah, because the
no,
internet
don't say
never
that.
takes. I'm trying to help you. The internet never takes anything out of context.
It is what it is.
Come on, we're in 2024 now.
All right. Well, in 2 years, I want to travel to see the next one. It's in Iceland and in Spain. Let's
There's one
go.
in 2 years. How often does this happen?
So a total solar eclipse happens like like at least like usually 1 to twice a year, but a lot of times it's very smaller paths and like in the middle of the ocean or in Antarctica where you can't see it.
Wild.
Yeah, very weird.
I know.
All right,
very
well,
little
people are
about
here for the NFL. Let's talk about some news.
it. Okay.
Okay. Big one that again we missed because your basement flooded. The Bills traded wide receiver Stefon Diggs and 2024 sixth and 2025 fifth to the Houston Texans for a 2025 second. The Texans after that waived the rest of Stefon Diggs' contract, so after this year he will be a free agent. In like a gesture to Stefon Diggs, but yeah, I mean, like there have been rumors floating about Stefon Diggs being unhappy in Buffalo for a decent amount of time now, but this just like happened on like a random Wednesday last week.
Yeah, he's Stefon Diggs is like the ultimate. I know we've talked about this tweet 1,000 times. Is Denny Carter? Is that who it is?
Mm-hmm.
Where the way everyone tweets in the NFL and wide receivers are always move swiftly and hold a knife.
Carry
or
a
whatever it is.
knife, yeah.
Yeah, that I
No,
don't.
the enemy speaks kindly and carries a knife or something
Yeah,
like that. Yeah.
Stefon Diggs is like the example of that. He is
Mhm.
like the prime example. If there was a picture of that quote, that tweet in the dictionary, you'd have Stefon Diggs right next to the wide receiver
Yep.
tweet. Because it's very hard. It's been very hard to get an idea of what he thought about this whole thing.
Yeah.
And if he was happy, if he was unhappy, you've got Bills fans and some even Bills reporters saying, "Oh, it's not a big deal. It's nothing. It's nothing that anyone has to worry about." But then in reality, like all of the signs were pointing to, it kind of seems like there's something going on there. Like
Mhm.
obviously Josh Allen and Stefon Diggs, their relationship started out great. And I don't even know if it was necessarily their relationship. Who knows?
Mhm.
We don't. But yeah, very bizarre. I also love whenever a wide receiver gets traded for way more than Amari Cooper got traded for, because it just
Yeah.
reminds me how stupid the Dallas Cowboys are.
Mhm.
But this is from a team building perspective on the Texans side of things, this is the way to approach making
They're
it.
doing everything right.
It all starts with the hardest part, which is finding the franchise quarterback, hitting on the
Mhm.
franchise quarterback, and knowing that you hit on the franchise quarterback after year one, which is no
Yeah.
small feat. But once you
Mhm.
do that, look at some of the most successful teams, some of the best teams overall that have been built over the past however many years. Obviously, yes, you've got Patrick Mahomes being Patrick Mahomes, but Russell Wilson went to a Super Bowl, and I think he won in his second year. Carson
Mhm.
Wentz was leading the Eagles to a Super Bowl in his second year. He would have been MVP had he not torn his ACL, but regardless,
Mhm.
the front office went all in on building a team around him that year. There's Patrick Mahomes. The first time he started doing stuff, it was when he was on his rookie contract.
Mhm.
There's Lamar Jackson, his first MVP
Yep.
year. There's so many examples of this, and the reason it works is because there is no bigger advantage in the NFL from a team
Mhm.
building perspective than having a quarterback on a rookie contract. I'm not, blowing any minds by saying that, but these are the types of moves you have to do because you are saving $50 million per year, assuming you have that level of quarterback, and you can do it. You can use that money everywhere else on the team, and $50 million per year is so much when you don't have to spend it on a quarterback. It's the equivalent of like 3 or 4 really good players at other
Mhm.
positions. So yeah, it's an incredible lesson in, you found the guy. Obviously, the window is his entire career if he turns out and
Mhm.
continues to be that guy. But you have a very clear window of 3 to 4 years before
Mhm.
this guy starts making serious money,
Yep.
that you have the coach. You've already got a lot of pieces in place. You need to go all in all the time for the next 3 to 4 years. And this is a
Yep.
perfect example of that move.
Yeah. And they're doing it on both sides of the ball. I mean, they on offense and just wide receiver alone, now they have Stefon Diggs, Tank Dell, Nico Collins, which he's shown that he has like a chemistry with all of them. Obviously not Stefon Diggs yet. They got Danielle Hunter in the offseason for defense.
Danielle.
They're making Danielle, sorry, have made vast improvements on both sides of the ball and doing it the right way. It's a rookie quarterback. You have to give him good skill position players to catch the ball and to beat around, and good linemen, which they're doing. I have no notes, 10 out of 10 from the Texans here. And I think the waiving the rest of Stefon Diggs' contract is also like a sign of good faith to Stefon Diggs in a way, like saying like, hey, if this works out, like we'll work with you. We don't need to take the rest of your contract. But they're also not signing on for something too early. You know what I mean? Like they have they're giving themselves an out, but also giving themselves an in with Stefon Diggs to say like, this is what we did for you. Do you want to come to the table and talk with us when you're a free agent? If they want to.
And also, by the way, he'll be 31 years old, hitting the free agent market, probably in line for his final kind of big contract.
Mhm.
And if they lose him in free agency, now that they don't have to cut him, he becomes a free agent because his contract
Mhm.
ends. They're in line to get a compensatory pick
Yep.
if he moves on, which again is the front office doing very intelligent
Yeah.
things, knowing that, okay, we're building up resources and ways that we can find other resources. Yes, we traded a second, but if Stefon Diggs gets a massive contract, there's every chance that they can get a third in
Mhm.
compensatory pick, which, okay, I don't know what the difference is between those values on like the value chart, but I guarantee it's less than a second is what you end up trading for him. So
Yep.
just very intelligent. And best
Yep.
case scenario, he's there for 5 years and helps him win a couple Super Bowls. Like, who knows?
Yeah. He did like a tweet or an Instagram post about Buffalo having the worst fans ever.
Oh, that was a tweet.
Tweet, was it? Okay,
Yeah.
I couldn't remember if it was a tweet or an Instagram, but yeah, he liked that. It sent
Yeah.
Buffalo fans in a tizzy.
Yeah, we're not.
Yeah.
We don't
All right.
talk about that.
On to the next. The Jaguars sign pass rusher Josh Allen, to a 5-year, $150 million deal, which makes sense. I mean, after the seasons he's been having, it makes complete sense for him.
Yeah. I mean, just a smart thing to do.
Yeah.
It's also, I think I read this was the 3rd year in a row that they've put someone on the franchise tag and then managed to extend them like before the season starts, which is smart. It's just a good, it shows that they're keeping their young cornerstones on the team, which is something that you want to see, especially from a franchise like the Jaguars, who more so than other franchises need to draft well to get star players on their team.
Yeah.
So when you get a star, probably don't let him leave.
Yeah, that would make sense. Another one who signed off the franchise tag, Patriots extend sign cornerback.
Tag.
Not the he was on the franchise tag.
He was on the transition tag.
Oh, okay, sorry. Cornerback Kyle Duggar to a 4-year deal worth up to $66 million.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on this?
I think it's good for the Patriots. I think they've like right now I don't know what their goal is, right? Like they're going to be completely rebuilding here. But I think it's good. I think they needed this like lockdown piece in their defense. They've lost a lot of defensive players over the last couple of years. I think he's proven himself to be worth that money. I don't think it's an exorbitant amount of money. So I think it's a fair deal for both sides here.
Yeah. I am reading that it was actually $58 million. It's worth.
I think mine was worth up to 66.
Yeah, up to $6 million, and $32 million guaranteed. So like approximately half of it. Yeah, I mean, an average value of $14.5 million is pretty good for safeties. I don't have in front of me what that ranks in terms of per year, but it's definitely on. Probably I would assume top 10. I'll look it up in a minute, but yeah, I mean, he's versatile. He's really good. He's on the older end, which, it doesn't really matter right now, but it definitely, kind of just sucks. I mean, this is his first contract and he's 28 years old. First non-rookie contract. But he's been incredible. He's been very versatile and very, kind of do it all type safety, the type of chess piece that, especially entering this new regime of post Bill Belichick, that a guy, God, what is their new head coach's name?
Oh my God.
Patriots.
I know why I can
Gerard
feel
Mayo.
It. There we go.
A guy that Gerard Mayo would probably be insistent on having kind of be the quarterback of the defense. And I think that's what Kyle Duggar will be. I remember really liking him coming out of the draft. And I honestly really kind of was hoping that he would find his way onto the Eagles this offseason, whether it be through the transition tag or, whatever it is. But interesting to note, just based on the safety free agent market, there's some big names still out there. Justin Simmons, a really, really good player, all-pro, Pro Bowler. Just really interesting that those guys are still out there. Because I imagine that this deal will probably have implications on. I mean, at this point, I think those players are most likely going to wait till after the draft to see, and I'm sure the teams are going to be willing to spend more money. So it's an intelligent choice on the players' part. But yeah, it's just very interesting to see how that pans out, especially, this is going to be, it's not like it doesn't change the overall safety market in a way that, when the top quarterback gets signed, but I think it will have an impact for sure.
Yep. 2 more deals. Derek Brown, the defensive tackle, signed a new deal with the Panthers for a 4-year, $96 million contract, of which 63 is guaranteed. It's a $24 million per year average, which is 4th most for defensive tackles.
Yeah, he's good. Good for the Carolina Panthers for actually paying one of their young, good players.
First time ever.
I don't understand what they're doing there. Why did they trade Brian Burns? Why didn't you just I feel bad.
We don't have time for this one.
How upset I am at the Carolina Panthers has nothing to do with Derek Brown. I'm happy for Derek Brown, but it does make me legitimately upset because it's like you're just so inconsistent, and I don't get
Yeah.
it. And
Yeah.
whatever. Do your thing, Carolina.
Well, why don't you talk about something that will probably make you happier? Jordan Mailata.
Yeah, Jordan Mailata. He got a 3-year, $66 million extension. I have not actually seen how much is guaranteed. So like I was looking for that beforehand because I realized I just didn't know what it was. But he's awesome. If you don't know who Jordan Mailata is, this is just one of the best stories in the NFL, in my opinion. Yes, he's a Philadelphia Eagle. Obviously, I'm biased, but he is a former rugby player who had never played a down of organized football. Yeah, organized American football in his life before he was drafted in the 7th round by Howie Roseman in the 2018 draft, I want to say. I believe it was the first one after the Super Bowl. Yeah, 7th round of the 2018 draft. The offensive line coach for the Philadelphia Eagles, Jeff Stoutland, who is arguably the best at his job in the entire NFL and maybe one of the best ever. He's incredible. He hand-selected Jordan Mailata. He's a 6'7" monster. And said,
the voice of an angel.
He does have the voice of an angel. A big part of the Christmas album that the Philly offensive linemen have been dropping the past couple of years. But Jeff Stoutland said, give me that piece of clay and let me mold him. And he turned him into, this is now his 2nd contract extension with the Philadelphia Eagles. His first one being, I believe it was 4 years, $68 million. So this will keep him in contract through 2028. It's just awesome. He's been physically he is unbelievable. Eagles fans will not rest until we see a tush push with him lined up anywhere other than left tackle. We can't wait to see it truly because you look up rugby highlights of the guy and it's incredible. Because that man is now playing left tackle in the NFL. It's really awesome. He's such a fun personality. He's such an awesome dude. He's from Australia. It's really cool to see him succeed in the way he has. And what makes
I love stories like that.
I do too. And what's even crazier is 2 years after drafting Jordan Mailata, they drafted Andre Dillard in the 1st round. They traded up to draft Andre Dillard to be the heir apparent to longtime Eagles left tackle Jason Peters. Andre Dillard got injured after a pretty unimpressive rookie campaign. Jordan Mailata stepped in and hasn't looked back. And he's been really, really incredible. I know he scored really well in PFF last year, probably better than I thought he was. But either way, this now means that for 30 straight years, I believe by the end of this contract, the Eagles will have gone from Trey Thomas, Pro Bowler, All-Pro, to Jason Peters, Hall of Famer, to Jordan Mailata. And that's it at left tackle. And that is just, it's, as an Eagles fan, it's just, we practice what we preach, which is we're going to overemphasize both the defensive and the offensive line to death. And that's what it gets you. So
in the trenches, baby.
Yeah. Can you imagine having a good offensive line for that many years, Ashley?
There's some more news to talk about. We don't have time.
Fair enough.
Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice has a warrant out for his arrest as of today. He faces 1 count of aggravated assault, 1 count of collision involving serious bodily injury, and 6 counts of collision involving injuries stemming from last month's crash. So he got into a crash, which was like a domino effect crash in a, is it Lamborghini? Corvette? I should have wrote that part down.
I think it was a Corvette.
Corvette?
Now, I don't know.
So he faces charges. There was a bunch of weird stories coming around that like, oh no, like I rented a car, or somebody rented my car, or whatever. He was taken in for questioning and now left. And then now he faces an arrest warrant, which there's 1 count on there that makes this a little bit more serious than the rest, which is the collision involving serious bodily injury, and 6 count, collision involving serious bodily injury, which is not the best. So we'll see how that works out for him. But just be aware.
And be careful what you read on the internet, people. People spread misinformation all the time. So just make sure you're getting it from legitimate news sources.
Yeah. Not like AI bots that try and just engagement farm.
It sounds like you said engagement fart. I just want to put that
engagement
out there.
farm.
That's fair.
Farm. All right, so on to just some miscellaneous news. Marcus Mariota will be the first quarterback to wear number 0
for the Washington Commanders.
Yes. The NFL expanded the uniform policy, now allowing for a third alternate helmet design. This was originally for teams like going through rebranding to allow to have a third helmet, and then they transitioned it so all teams can have 3 helmets, 2 alternate helmets.
Well, actually, you're right and wrong.
Okay.
For the 2024 season, teams going through a redesign can have 3 helmets.
Okay.
Everyone else, it's for 2025.
2025. Okay. So then it lines up with my next thing, which is next season, the player health and safety department will present players with 12 new options for helmets, 8 of which are specifically made for quarterback and linemen for next season. If you know me, I am overly thrilled about this, more than anyone would probably know. I don't even think most people would know what it's about. So,
woo!
Yay!
Health and safety, baby.
Health and safety. I love the brain.
Who do we have to thank for all these awesome throwback uniforms, Ashley, with the cool matching helmets?
Who, Duncan?
Do you not know the answer?
I know the answer. Every time you ask me a question like this, the answer is the Philadelphia Eagles.
It is.
Yeah.
They're the ones that pushed for that, the 2 helmet rule for like 4 years. Because they wanted to bring back the Kelly Green.
Yep. Do you want to let us know the next 2?
Yeah. So I'll start first with the Manning cast. Got an extension through 2034, which is pretty sick. Omaha Productions, I believe, was the technicality. Like that's what the extension was through. But either way, very fun, very cool, informative broadcast, and I really enjoy it. I like the guests they have on. I think a lot of people tend to feel the same way. It's not for everybody, and I don't watch it for every game, but I do like it. And then the second game of the season has now been officially announced, which is bizarre that it happened before the first game of the season. But the international game in Brazil, which will be the Friday of opening week, the day after the opening day game, Thursday, which will feature the Kansas City Chiefs facing off against somebody. And it will be the Eagles hosting the Packers in Brazil. Is it Sao Paulo, Brazil?
Yes.
I believe. It will be streamed exclusively on Peacock and your local TV network if you live in Philadelphia, and I would assume Green Bay. And I will be at a rehearsal dinner for a wedding.
Yeah.
So that's my life, unfortunately. So
Lucky
that
you.
sucks. But yeah, you need to step away for a second. You do what you got to do.
Yeah, give me 2 seconds.
Yep, no problem. I am going to just talk a little bit more about that because this is the official first game ever played in Brazil. For a while, it was apparently reported that it was floated between the Browns and the Packers to be the Eagles' week 1 opponent. I don't know how they came up on the Packers, but this is the first time the Eagles are playing the Packers in week 1 and hosting the Packers, although it's not technically in Philly, since 2010, which, if you remember, was the year that Kevin Kolb was going to start for the Eagles before breaking his something. And Mike Vick entered the game and never looked back and became the unquestioned starter for the rest of the season. That game also took place in the Kelly Green uniforms that were worn in the 2010 season. That was obviously before Nike and before they had weird helmet rules. But regardless, it should be a cool week 1 game. It's going to be really interesting to see how the NFL always makes a spectacle about this type of stuff. When you go to London for a game, which I was lucky enough to go to, there's a ton of stuff all over the place about the NFL coming there. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the NFL does for its first official game in Brazil.
Yeah, I'm excited to see. I like the international series games. I know it's not the best for like health and safety wise, with all the traveling and stuff, but I do love the theatrics of it. I love the idea of more people becoming NFL fans. I love football, and I think everyone should.
I will say I find it least offensive when it's week 1 because you're playing on a Friday, which is annoying for me personally because it will be very difficult for me to watch, but I will. Mm-hmm. But then you have a long week going into week 2. So you're not getting the short week. I mean, you get a weird week, but not a short week. So,
yep. My last little piece of news is just some personal news that the Giants are making me so sad and they're driving me so crazy. Joe Shane came out this week, GM came out this week and said, I know everyone thinks we're going to draft a quarterback, but we have so many needs. And while I do tend to agree with him that we do have many, many needs, basically the entire team, we also need a quarterback. So they drive me crazy and make me sad a lot of the times. And that's it for news.
Real quick, I do have one
Yeah.
more small piece of news.
Okay.
Last episode, which was 2 weeks ago, technically, I did put a challenge out there. If anyone asked me to do a certain something, then I would do it. And so here we go. Here's another opportunity for the Giants to make you sad.
In 6 games against number 1 seed, the Giants, since the playoffs restructuring in 1990, the Giants are a perfect 6-0. That 6-game win streak versus the number 1 is the longest by any franchise in the NFL since the NFL began seeding the playoff teams in 1975. I love this Giants team.
Do you think they're going to win?
Yes. Since 97, I think the Giants win 1 game. If they win the first game, they end up going to the Super Bowl. I do think the Giants walk away with this one, and it's at that. I think it's a little bit more low scoring than people are expecting. I think the Giants are end up winning it on like a pick 6. I think expect this team to be here. So, do I think it's gonna win? Yes. I'll take your real victory too because they're gonna win. The Giants are gonna win. The Giants have the vibes, man. What's your final score prediction?
38-7.
Wow.
You're muted, Ashley. I cannot hear you.
I'm glad we moved away from I'm glad we moved to the tiny screens. That's my takeaway from that.
I agree. Also, both of our cameras look better than they did that day.
Yeah, they do. They do. Yours just needed to be wiped, apparently.
Just crazy, and that makes me sound like a slob. It's shout out to my friend Nick, who always listens to the podcast, and he texted me, and I'm glad that I remembered. But I think if I had to choose one piece of content that I was going to hand to like a possible employer and say, this is why you should hire me, that is the thing I'm most proud of. I put out music while I was in college. I went to school for music. I think that's better than anything that I created while in college, while I was studying music. That is, I'm deeply proud of that, and throw in the fact that I got the prediction spot on for the score. So very proud of that. Go Birds. Anyway.
Yay. Let's talk about some NFL draft prospects. So we had to addend what we were doing a little bit. We're going to focus on offensive skill positions because we had a flooded basement, and the coaches conference, which gave us like too much coaches and owners conference, which gave us too much news. So we had to scale back on our defense. We can still chat about it a little bit. We'll talk about some of our, the top prospects when we do our mock draft, but for our more in-depth analysis, we're going to talk about just offensive skill positions. So let's start with tight end. We'll follow it similar to how we did last week. I'll give you their name, stats, and then Duncan will give you a little bit of background. Duncan, cool with that?
Yes.
Cool. So the consensus number 1 tight end in the draft is obviously Brock Bowers from Georgia, who stands 6'3", weighs 243, and ran a 4.4840.
Sorry, hold on. I'm pulling it up. So some quick background on Brock Bowers. Once again, this is from NFL Draft Guide from The Ringer. Danny Kelly does a great job with that, and in particular, Daniel Comer does backgrounds and stats. So Brock Bowers is a junior and a former 4-star prospect out of Napa, California. He was second team AP All-American his true freshman year in 2021. Started 13 of 15 games and finished the season as UGA's leading receiver with 56 catches for 882 yards and 13 touchdowns, the highest single season total in school history. 2022, he played in all 15 games and won the John Mackey Award as the nation's best tight end, and was a semifinalist for the Bolitnikoff Award, which is typically a receiver award, but in this case would be a pass catcher. He led UGA in every major category, again in every major receiving category again in 2023. He won the John Mackey Award for the second consecutive year, and again was a semifinalist for the Bolitnikoff Award. And he ranked among the top 5 at his position in PFF grade in each of his college seasons. He missed a few games in the 2023 season after suffering a high ankle sprain, but he underwent tightrope surgery in October and returned in November. He is as much of a unicorn as we've ever seen at the tight end position coming into this draft.
Yeah.
Long story
Yeah.
short.
So, I mean, basically, it's like off the charts everywhere. Agility, balance, explosiveness. A lot of like professional scouts say he's the most NFL ready tight end they've ever seen. And obviously we heard a lot about like most recently, like Kyle Pitts coming out of the draft. And we know that there is a hard transition for tight ends to the NFL. That's probably one of the harder positions to transition in. But scouts don't often claim tight ends are NFL ready because of that. And they are claiming that Brock Bowers is NFL ready. He was a absolutely proven playmaker with incredible ball handling, really gets a lot of yards after contact. His teammates have literally nothing but good things to say about him as a leader, about his energy, about all of that. Genuinely, really the only downside is that he did have a lot of wear and tear, was used a lot in college, and obviously that previous ankle injury. In my thoughts, there was one area, it's that he was a little reliant on mismatches in college. But I don't think that takes away from his ability. I do think that resulted in a little bit more of those bigger explosive plays, the mismatches, but I don't think it takes away at all on how talented he is.
Yeah, he's insane. He's extremely versatile. 40% of his snaps came from the slot and 11% came from out wide, which kind of leads me into something that could be viewed as both a strength or a weakness, or a pro or a con, depending on where he lands, really. And that's the fact that he's 6'3", he's 243. He's not huge, so he's a bit undersized.
Yes.
And he could be viewed as a tweener in the NFL, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, completely depending on how the team uses him. But I think I look at Kyle Pitts and I think, okay, I'm going to look at how Arthur Smith used him. Not well.
Yeah.
So he needs to land not in a very specific spot, but in a spot with someone creative enough to get the most out of him. Not someone that is just going to expect him to line up as an inline tight end, do some do some, short yard catch. Like, he's a weapon, unicorn. He's an incredible, explosive vertical playmaker. He's incredible after the catch. He averaged 8.7 yards after the catch per reception in 2023.
Yeah.
6th among all tight ends in the FBS. And he totaled 18 missed tackles forced, which was 2nd among tight ends in the year. So I just pray to God that he goes somewhere that knows how to use him. Just put him somewhere creative. Do not send him to Pittsburgh, where Arthur Smith and Mike Tomlin are going to do nothing with him. He could still be good, but when you're looking at Brock Bowers, and we'll kind of go into this more when we get to the mock draft, and when you're taking a tight end with such premium draft capital, there's different levels of what will make him worthy of that draft capital and how you use him. I don't think he'll go as high as Kyle Pitts did, which I believe was like 8th overall or 7th or 9th or something. I know Bijan Robinson was 8. Maybe Kyle Pitts might have even been 4, actually. I completely forget. But I don't know if he goes that high, but it's a possibility. And I just pray that he goes somewhere that plans on using him as the special talent he is.
So in my eyes, like, I know Pete Carroll's gone, but like, I could see him be a decent fit in Seattle. I've looked at a couple mock drafts that have him in New York with the Jets. It does range for him, like where he's landing in these mock drafts. I do like the idea of Seattle. Like that stands out to me. But yeah. What about you? Anywhere specifically you would like to see him?
Actually, I do want to look at the mock draft database real quick, which is NFLmockdraftdatabase.com. It's a really cool tool. It except when they give me a 500 error. That's not ideal. There we go. But it basically pulls all like mock drafts that are so I just want to see where the average has him falling out of curiosity. And Brock Bowers, his most popular pick is 10th overall to the Jets, 64% of the time, and this is a lot of mock drafts. So yeah, I don't know where I want him to go. I'm more about I know where I don't want him to go.
Yeah,
and that's places like Pittsburgh that I just think will misuse him.
Yep. All right, so on to the next. Jashavian Sanders, a tight end out of Texas, who is 6'4" tall, weighs 245 pounds, and ran a 4.69 40-yard dash.
Yeah, I don't have a ton. The ringer doesn't go all the way down
Mhm.
in terms of the ones that they do backgrounds for. So I don't have backgrounds for these next two tight ends.
Okay,
But
we could just talk about him.
I do have scouting reports. I
Mhm.
have him down as a talented pass catcher, but he's got average build. He's not a consistent blocker. He was used all over the field in the passing game, and he did it from out wide, slot, and inline. They used him on screens, and he seemed to be pretty good after the catch at Texas, but he needs to be stronger to do
Yes.
inline blocking.
Yep.
Unlike Brock Bowers, who is undersized, he doesn't necessarily seem it on the field all the time.
Mhm.
From what I saw with Jatavian Sanders, like he looks undersized comparatively to what you want to see a tight end that's
Yes.
doing inline blocking. He's also not the cleanest route runner, but on the bright side, like I said, he's a really talented pass catcher who can outrun most linebackers. He's a strong contested catcher, and his size and strength give him the ability to catch and run routes through traffic.
Yep. Yeah, so that's for me. It was that he's really versatile in his route running, and I think his smaller stature and size for a tight end make that possible. That's the more wide receiver aspect of the tight end role. My thing is like, don't ever all of the film I watched and the scouting reports that I listened to is don't ever put like a linebacker on him. He can create an incredible mismatch with separation. He'll win in no contact, and like with no contact, he'll beat them all day, any day. He did show decent effectiveness and good handwork with blocking, like being in pass pro situations, but the size was too much for him to overcome in run blocking situations. So he is not going to be beneficial to you on the field at this stage. Obviously, with the NFL regimen of diet and weight training and all of that, there's always a possibility for him to bulk up, but he's not going to change his height, and that factors in here. So he's not very helpful for your team in run blocking situations, but he does show decent amount in pass pro.
Yeah, I agree. And basically after Brock Bowers, nobody knows where the next tight end is going to go. There's not really even a clear number two. I think we both have the same general tier of 2 and 3
Yes.
of Jatavian Sanders and then this next guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we're not going to spend as much time on these guys because
Nope.
they're not quite Brock Bowers, which
Yeah.
is fine. But the next guy is Cade Stover, correct?
Yep, Cade Stover, tight end out of Ohio State, 6'4", 251. He is a senior. These three have pretty similar like height and weight builds, which is rare. Usually, like this top few, even if there is a gap at tight end, there is versatility in size and stature because tight end ranges so broadly between like very big and bulky and skinnier and like a little bit shorter. But these guys are all three of the same like make. But yeah, his story is pretty cool. So he was originally a linebacker. He moved to defensive end before his freshman year. He didn't become a full-time tight end until like this past season. So he moved around a bunch. He has a lot of explosiveness on the line with really good like in-route adjustments. And a lot of scouting reports will mention that he has a lot of great benefits for special teams. The downsides of mine were that a lot of his production came because of how stacked Ohio State was, and just that lifted him up because defenders were forced into single coverage. And he needs a lot of coaching as a blocker, especially because he started out on the other side of the ball. So he needs a lot of work on his blocking. But yeah, for right now, like while I do think he is like the number 3 here because I think he has a lot of potential, I don't see him being much more than a maybe one down guy and a lot of special team work.
Yeah, I mean, the first note that I had was really not a great blocker, and I saw some absolutely horrendous run blocking reps.
Yeah.
Really, and I didn't know that he just became a tight end.
Yeah.
But it's very clear that, and that's the scary part about it is he's going to be a project when he gets drafted. Tight end is already a difficult position to, like you said, adjust to in the NFL. It normally takes longer for tight ends than, even a wide receiver. He's definitely a catch first weapon. He's got the athletic traits to be a weapon, but he's still a rough route runner. He's not the best at getting off the line, but he's better as the route goes on typically, which again, that all kind of falls in line with being newer to the position. So the possibility is there. He's definitely going to be a project for some team that could possibly get something really interesting out of him. He's pretty good at the catch point. He's pretty good after the catch, but there's just really large parts of his game as a tight end that kind of stop him from being a total package.
Yeah, I agree with you. But I do think it's also interesting you're signing on for someone who does have experience on the other side of the ball too. So like you are getting a tight end, but like if you ever like absolutely ran out of players on the other side, you know what I mean?
No,
Like,
stop it. No,
but I think it's fine because you understand both sides of the ball, like a special teams guy. And, you know, you never know. We've had friggin' random people be kickers and stuff before.
Yeah,
you never know.
Kickers, that's not a
very
linebacker. You don't put him out there as a line.
Throw him in for one rep. Yep,
No.
I do. I would totally.
You don't look. When was the
That's
last
why
time?
I'm
When
gonna be
was
the
the last
NFL
time that
coach.
happened? When was the last time that?
I
happened?
don't. I'm saying as an NFL coach, it would be interesting for me.
Yeah, it'd be interesting for me too if I was playing Madden or I was sitting at
Exactly.
at home
That's why it's
and
fun.
my job didn't depend on it.
That's why I think it's fun.
Stop it.
I think it's
Stop
fun.
it. That will never happen.
We got lots to talk about on wide receiver, so let's do that.
Yeah. Pretty good
I don't know if we have the
stuff.
same ranking. I'm assuming our number one is probably the same, and that would be the one out of Ohio State, Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, I'm not totally bought in on my rankings yet. I just want to say
Okay.
that. I'm just kind of going in a general order, like sort of a consensus order that I found. I'm actually just going to go in whatever order you say them. So
okay. Well, number one I have is Marvin Harrison Jr. from Ohio State. 6'3", 209 pounds. He ran a 4.39 40. He is a junior. Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go? You have background?
yeah, I got some background. So do you know where he's from?
No.
You said you always
Philly?
know the answer. Yeah, he's from Philly. He is also the son of Hall of Famer Marvin Harrison. I don't honestly know if you said that.
No, I didn't yet. I figured you were going to talk about that in background.
Yeah, but he is from St. Joe's Prep, a prep school here in Philadelphia. He won, what was it? He was a teammate of his Ohio State teammate, Kyle McCord, who was the quarterback last year, and they won 3 state championships together in Pennsylvania at St. Joe's Prep. So that's pretty cool. But I have been vaguely aware of Marvin Harrison since then because a local guy. He saw limited involvement his freshman season behind future NFL first rounders Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and Jackson Smith in Jigba. But he broke out in 2022 when he totaled 77 receptions, 1,263 yards, and 14 touchdowns. And he was named a unanimous All-American, Ohio State's first receiver. And then he totaled 67 receptions, 1,211 receiving yards, and 14 touchdowns, all-team highs over 12 games in 2023. He ranked 5th nationally in yards per route run, and he won the 2023 Bolitnikoff Award and finished 4th in Heisman Trophy voting.
Yep. All right. I got a lot of positives. Do you want me to just run through them?
Give me a report.
He's a really good route runner is an absolute understatement. He consistently wins at the top of his routes. He's really good at tricking corners into turning their bodies away. So with his shortcuts and his fake outs, he will have the corners completely turn their bodies away, and it creates this incredible separation, which makes him your big play guy. His athletic ability is absolutely off the charts. Agility, flexibility. When I watch him, it's almost like he's like dancing and doing gymnastics out there. It's one of those people who just flow so effortlessly on the field that it looks like it's in his DNA, which it might be. You never know.
I mean, that you're just kind of describing Marvin Harrison as a player.
Exactly. So he uses his size really well and is incredibly speedy. And he's fast off the line, which helps a lot with his like go and his corner routes, which again feeds into him being your big play guy. My only downside with him really is that his cuts need to be a little bit better and that he doesn't get a lot of yak, but that's also because he's a big play guy and he consistently gets a decent amount of separation.
Yeah, I mean, this guy, people have known that he's going to be one of the top 2 receivers in this class for, I don't know, since he was in high school, probably. And that's not necessarily true. He's technically only a 4-star prospect. But since we saw him on the field at Ohio State, it's been very clear that he is one of the most hyped college prospects in recent memory. With that, it becomes very easy to get bored of talking about how good he is. I mean, he's just an incredible technical route runner. He's a great catcher. He does everything the right way, and he combines his technique he is very refined technique is what I'm trying to say.
And like good body control.
Yes, great body control. He does a lot of things really well. I would say that the two, not even red flags, but like the
Mhm.
two reasons that NFL teams might look at it and be like, is he's not really a big threat to break tackles in the open
Yep.
field, and he had an 8.2% drop rate in 2023, which was double the number of drops he recorded in 2022, which is not great and too many. But, you know.
His production also did drastically increase.
Increase?
Yeah.
In
2023?
No. He had the same number of receiving touchdowns. He had less receiving yards and less receptions in 2023 than he
Oh,
did in
why do
2020.
I have that backwards? Oh,
I mean,
okay.
either way, it's not drastic, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, whatever. All right. Do you feel, I know you didn't nail down your thing, your order. Do you think he's your number one?
Yeah, I'm not going to overthink it. He's probably my number one.
Okay.
I just think he's got really everything you want. It's
Yep.
just-
So my 2 and 3 go back and forth. Depends on the day. But I'll talk about the first one, which is Malik Nabers out of LSU, who's 6 feet tall, 200 pounds, ran a 4.40, and is a junior.
Yeah, he's a former 4-star receiver out of Louisiana. He played 25 games over his first 2 seasons and totaled 100 receptions, 1,434 yards, and 7 touchdowns. And then he totaled 89 receptions, 1,569 receiving yards, and 14 touchdown catches, tied for second and third, respectively, in the FBS in 2023. He also ranked first in the PFF receiving grade, second in first downs, third in yards per route run, and fourth in missed tackles forced among receivers with 30. Yeah. He's really good.
He is really good.
And you want to know who he kind of reminds me of a little
Who?
bit? Former LSU superstar himself, Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
He's not maybe as powerful, but
The agileness.
the big play explosiveness, like not just a deep threat, but big play. The
Mhm.
kind of guy that
Yeah.
can catch a 5-yard slant route and take it
Yep.
all the way down. He will be 21 in July, so he's very young,
Mhm.
which is a good thing. He puts in effort as a blocker in the run game. Yeah, he's just really good. I think the only downsides I have are that he's still a little bit raw. He's probably more raw than Jamar Chase was at this point. And he needs to develop just like a tad bit more discipline as a route runner. So.
Yep, and I think it's just developing that route tree a little bit more. You can see if you look at, or I know it's not the official like perception tree, but you can see, I don't have his official one, but I saw another one which is similar. There's some development on the outsides. He's really good, really, really good in the slot, and he uses that agility and his size to his benefit for yards after contact, which is, like you said, he can take a 5-yard play and make it a 60-yard touchdown. He does that. But I do think there is a little bit, it's nothing drastic. It's not like he's a project. I think there's just a little bit of development needed on some of his routes. For me, there's also, he does struggle with like deeper separation. And there are some times when I watch this film where it looks like he avoids contact a little bit in like high traffic situations where I don't know that he has to just get used to bodies being around him, especially as this high of a prospect and how defenses will treat him. I think he just, with practice at the NFL level, needs to have more bodies on him in practice to learn to not avoid that contact in traffic.
Sorry, I was informed by my co-owner that we were on the clock in a startup draft.
Oh.
I am simply my friend Derek, fellow Undroppable. I should know his @ because I try and say it every single week while doing the show. At @FF_Derek Fuchs. Yeah, he's letting me draft the team, and then he's going to take it over because I like drafting. And I don't need to manage any more dynasty.
I hate managing dynasty teams.
I love managing dynasty.
I hate it.
But I've learned that there's too many. When I have too many, I don't pay enough attention to any of them. And that's just not fun for anyone. So I like drafting. It keeps me informed. And he liked my pick. I picked Chig Okonkwo, the tight end from Tennessee. So, and we're in like the 15th or 16th round or something. And I
have him on a couple teams actually.
We have Mark. Do we have? I don't know if we have Mark Andrews. I feel like we have a top tight end. I don't remember who it is though.
We have Mark Andrews on our team.
Yeah.
Okay, we still got more wide receivers,
Yeah.
buddy. Okay.
Did we cover everything with
I think so. The
he's
last
very
thing I
good.
talked about, yes, the last thing I talked about was that I think he avoids contact a little bit in high traffic
Yes.
situations.
Yes. I have him in the
Um,
same general tier as Marvin Harrison. I have him closer to Marvin
Yeah.
Harrison, maybe above him than I do
Yep.
close to our third guy, who I'm assuming we have the same, which is Rome Odunze.
Yes.
Rome
From
Odunze?
Washington, Rome Odunze.
Is it Rome or Romy?
Rome.
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 I wrote out the phonetic spelling because my brain wants it to be Rome Odunze all the time. So I had to write out the phonetic spelling.
I watched this. I would happen upon like this one YouTuber, like on
Mhm.
in like Instagram Reels or something, and he was always
Mhm.
doing like NCAA 14 or whatever, but with updated
Mhm.
rosters. And I found the first time I heard of Roma Dunze, I believe he pronounced it like Roma Dunze, and
Uh-huh.
I just thought it was really funny. And then I was like, oh, this guy's actually really good.
Yeah.
And I actually learned about him, and now I just want to pronounce it Roma Dunze.
Yeah.
'Cause I
My
just think that's a
brain my
really
brain does not want it
way.
to be pronounced right, so I do have the phonetic spelling up. It's Rome Odunze.
I like a Dunze. Oh, Dunze.
Okay.
So
He
much better.
is 6'3". He weighs 212. He ran a 4.45 40 and is a junior.
Yeah. So yeah, he's a fourth-year junior, former four-star out of Las Vegas. He played sparingly his freshman year at Washington, but started 7 games in 2021. He broke out in 2022 with a team in Pac-12 leading 1,145 receiving yards on 75 receptions, as well as 7 touchdowns. And he built on that success in 2023 with 92 receptions, 1,640 receiving yards, which was first nationally, and 13 touchdown catches, tied for 6th nationally. He also ranks 16th in the FBS in yards per route run. There are certainly going to be teams in the NFL that have him as their top wide receiver on the board.
Yes.
I think.
Yep.
Because what I'd say the other guy, the other top 2 guys lack is like just pure size, and Rome Odunze is built like if you're building a player on Madden to play wide receiver, you're probably building him a lot closer to Rome Odunze at 6'3" and 212. He makes plays at all 3 levels of the field. He has the speed. It's not quite the elite speed that we talked about with the last 2 guys, but he ran a 4.45 40-yard dash. He's got explosiveness. He's got speed. He was hyper productive in college. He's got the size for a number 1 receiver. He's dangerous deep, and he wins at the catch point. Like, he can just kind of do everything. And I do think a team is going to be really happy if they end up taking him as the 3rd wide receiver off the board.
Yeah. For me, what I have is that he was an absolute contested catch specialist at the college level. Talk about that in a second on my downsides too. But he is an absolute attack guy. He attacks contact. He attacks the ball. He has an incredible catch radius. He can like literally grab it if it's anywhere in the vicinity. Has excellent body control and makes really quick cuts and in-route adjustments. And is a certified playmaker. For me, one of the things is that he needs to be a little bit faster off the release, off the line. Last season, he made a lot of improvements, impressed to the season before, but there's still a lot to improve, which is where I talk about that contested catch aspect, because sometimes people see a contested catch specialist and say, well, why do you have to be good at contested catches? You should be getting more separation. So I do think he needs a little bit more improvement in press, but we've seen that he has made those improvements already. So I don't consider that too big of a downside, because it's not as big of a project if you can show that somebody has made progress in it before.
Yeah, he is a little more raw, probably, especially from a route running perspective than the other 2 guys that we've talked about. And after the catch, I don't think he's going to be anything crazy special there. He needs to learn how to use his strength a little bit better.
Yes.
He's got the size, but he needs to learn how to use his strength a little bit better. But overall, like I do think that like there are going to be teams that view his ceiling as the highest in this class, and I can't really blame them, because the physical tools that he has are pretty good. So
yep.
Rome Odunze.
Yeah.
Do
you have
Odunze?
Odunze?
Odunze.
Odunze.
I give up.
I have two others on this list. I don't know if you have others you would like to talk about.
Let's just talk about the ones you have.
Okay. Adonai Mitchell out of Texas, 6'4", 205, ran a 4.34 40.
Yes, he's a junior and a 4-star prospect out of Tennessee. He played in 30 games over his first 2 seasons with the Bulldogs, Georgia, including he had a pretty spectacular touchdown catch in the national championship. And then he transferred to Texas in part to be closer to his parents and 2-year-old daughter, whose name I will not try and pronounce. And he was named the Big 12 Newcomer of the Year after totaling 55 receptions, 848 receiving yards, and 11 touchdown catches across 14 games in 2023. And he was also named to the All Big 12 second team.
Yup. I actually have him ranked above the next guy. I know there's a lot of debate here, but I prefer Mitchell. The top of his route tree is really, really well developed. His posts and his go routes. His footwork is some of the best in this class. He has another one with great body control. He can track the ball like no one's business and grab the ball out of air. The catches you didn't know that somebody would be able to catch, he does. He doesn't get a lot of yards after contact, and any routes that are not up the middle need some development. But for me, I have him ranked above Brian Thomas personally.
Yeah, I like him. I think he's probably I don't even know if he's necessarily my next wide receiver. There's a couple other guys, and I think I'll just probably talk more about that when we get to the mock draft show, because I'm sure these things will come up. But yeah, I think he's a great route runner. Big play talent, give me the ball mentality, 3-level threat with the possibility of definitely turning into like a true number 1 wide receiver. He's got good size for it, good athleticism. But he never posted elite numbers in college. He was not even the most productive receiver on his own team in 2023. And I worry that he was just kind of a little underpowered. But he definitely has a lot of the traits that you want in a guy that I feel like he's going to be like a T. Higgins kind of guy. I can see that. Not in the terms of like playing, but like a lot of people kind of thought that T. Higgins would go maybe back end of the first round, even in the 20s. And then he ended up going like the 2nd or 3rd pick of the second round. I kind of feel like that might be what he has. He reminds me a little bit play wise of like a George Pickens kind of thing, which maybe isn't too far off.
I've seen that comp a little bit. Yeah. I do think the role, though, could be a little bit more T. Higgins-ish, too, especially to start.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's going to...
But I do like his ceiling, personally.
He could end up in a really cool situation where he's, like, the very clear number 2 to, like, a pretty elite number 1, and have the ability to kind of form, like, an A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, or Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle level of, duo. Yep,
I agree. The other one I had on was Brian Thomas out of LSU, 6'3", 209, and a 4.33 40.
I will say I have him down as 6'4".
Oh, my bad.
Doesn't really matter. I don't know which one is correct, but he was a junior and a 4-star prospect out of Walker, Louisiana. He played in 12 games during his freshman year at LSU in 2021, catching 28 passes for 359 and 2 touchdowns. He appeared in 13 games as a sophomore in 2022, totaling 31, 361, and 5. And he was named a Biletnikoff semifinalist in 2023 after jumping up to 68 receptions, 1,177 receiving yards, and an FBS leading 17 touchdown catches. And I think that number is a big part of the reason that people are going to be interested in him. He scores a lot of touchdowns. He is an explosive playmaker with the speed to take the lid off the defense. He's great at tracking the ball. He reminds me of kind of like Christian Watson, sort of. Okay. Probably a little more polished than Christian Watson. But he definitely has room to grow. But he's elusive after the catch. He provides a lot of exciting and explosiveness on the offensive side of the ball. So,
yeah, he is really agile and really explosive. His cuts are magnificent. He does them very quickly. It often confuses defenders. It leads to a lot of his yards after contact. He does well in press if he gets off the release fast, which does happen for him often because of his speed. He obviously ran a 4.33 40. For me, it's some of the basics that need work. His footwork needs a lot of improvement, and his ball tracking ability isn't up there. He's a tier below these other guys when it comes to ball tracking. So that does worry me a little bit with him, just because those are sort of the fundamentals. But I think in the right fit where he has a good wide receiver coach and a good head coach who can use the strengths he does have right now, I do think he will can make a difference. I don't know that it's going to be incredibly immediate because a lot of this is fundamentals that I think he needs to work on. But I think long term, I think he is a good prospect.
I will say, I think that playing next to Malik Nabers at LSU makes him a little bit more of a projection than some of the other guys we've talked about, because he only had one season of high-end production. He led the team and led everyone in receiving touchdowns, but he did operate with a very limited route tree. He was mostly a vertical threat. And, there were times on film where it seemed like he wasn't running full speed because the play was not designed to go to him. So it'll be interesting to see how that translates to the NFL, because I feel like those types of prospects, I can't think of any off the top of my head from recent years, but they always seem to be very hit or miss. You can ask yourself, did the production that he got come mostly because of him and it could have been more if Malik Nabers wasn't there, or did he get the production that he got because Malik Nabers was there? And that's the kind of thing that you can't really answer. And that's going to make the decision to draft him a little tougher than some of these other guys.
Yep. And there is plenty of other guys that I consider in this tier. I do consider my top three to be, it's pretty much everyone's top three. After that, there is a little bit of a bigger second tier. You obviously have Lad McConkey, Keon Coleman, Xavier Worthy, Jermaine Burton, all in that category right there. Troy Franklin, yes. So all in that category right there.
Roman Wilson.
All right in this. I consider them all pretty. Those guys all pretty.
Sorry, I was just naming the next other guys that I had kind of.
You were just naming.
I could have just kept going, but I was like, I've interrupted her enough times at this point.
Yeah. So a lot of those guys are considered, or in my head, there's a bigger tier 2. I have to watch more film. We'll talk about them more, obviously, as the seasons goes on and as we do our mock draft. But that's wide receivers and tight ends from us. So
what's next week? Is that quarterbacks on?
Next week is quarterbacks.
I don't know why I'm asking you as if we didn't talk about this an hour ago, but whatever.
Next week is quarterbacks, the big one.
Is it big?
The big one. Well, I mean, it's the big one that everyone loves to talk about.
That's a good point. I'm going to try and see if I can remember which one is which this year.
Yeah, that would be really helpful.
That was my big struggle last year. Actually, I knew which one was which. I just couldn't remember which one was short.
Yeah, you were
the height.
You were on the clock in the mock draft, and we're like, I want the short one. Who's the short one? Or the opposite. I want the tall one. Who's the tall one?
Yeah. I stand by that. CJ Stroud sounds like a shorter name than Bryce Young. Bryce Young sounds like a big, maybe it's just Bryce.
His last name is Young, dude.
Yeah, but Stroud starts with the same letter as S, small.
Young, baby, small.
Bryce sounds bigger than CJ, is what I'm saying.
No.
Yes. Bryce? No. Bryce is a big dude.
No.
Bryce Harper. CJ is like that little guy down the street that he never really grew into his ears, Please don't be offended if your name is CJ.
Young, small.
Yeah, I wasn't talking about the
Stroud big.
Yeah, no, Stroud does not equal big. No, fine. Just leave. End this.
Where can we find you, Duncan?
You can find me watching the NBA very intently now that Joel Embiid is returned in MVP caliber form and trying to avoid the play-in tournament, which is always fun. And hopefully I will experience happiness.
Good. You could find me.
Oh, also on Twitter at mpduncan75.
Good. You can find me watching the Masters this weekend. You could find me here live, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Wednesday night with Mr. Michael P. Duncan. You can find me on Twitter at Ashley_Marie with 2 A's and Ashley. And you can find Duncan, me, and the entire Undroppables crew on our Discord channels, which you can gain access to by becoming a patron at patreon.com/theundroppables. We hope to see you next week. We have some really fun things going on behind the scenes, and we can't wait to tell you. But yeah, we hope you tune in to listen to us rant about quarterbacks. I'm sure we'll argue about that one a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, have a good night, everyone. Goodbye.
Go Birds.
Bye.